Okay, I'm going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We've just literally gone live. So on Zoom, it does take a while for the attendee list to build up as people's accounts, etc., log in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give it 3 or 4 minutes just to allow people who are actually joining in. I can see the attendee list picking up bit by bit. So I'll give it a few minutes for people to sign in. In the interim, I just want to say hello to everyone. My name is Ben from Medical Doorway. I think some of you will have emailed us. I'm recognizing some of the names on the attendee list there already. You will have spoken to myself or Marina at the office here. I'm going to introduce Andrew. Andrew, we had the chance to meet in the Emirates last month. He represents St. George's University out of the office in the UAE, in the Knowledge Village down in Dubai. It was a fantastic visit. And on the follow-up of that visit, we agreed to kind of put this webinar together as the last one for 2022. We are also going live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're watching on there as well, no problems. You can ask questions or make comments, etc. there. If you're watching through Zoom, either as a named individual or as anonymous, you've got the Q&A feature, which is live. Please, when you've got a question, tap it into the Q&A feature. Me and Andrew had a conversation just before we came online, and we will deal with your questions as they come up. Obviously, if a question is going to be dealt with as part of the presentation, Andrew will tell us, and if there's still a query, we can then come to that at the end of the session. We've got about an hour scheduled for this. It's very, informal. It's there to give you information, inform you about the university and the opportunities at the different campuses which SGU operate, and to talk a little bit about the successes that SGU has, especially in terms of graduate employment, because really that's one of the big kind of take-home messages from today's session. So we do have people now, I'm just looking at the screens here, joining us both on Facebook and YouTube. And obviously we've got now people signed into Zoom. So I think what we'll do, Andrew, I know it's the evening with you and you're going to want to get off pretty soon. So if you want to obviously go through the presentation, we'll bring that up on the screen. And then if anyone's got any questions, either on Facebook, YouTube, or on Zoom, then we can go through with them as they come in. If that's okay with you, Andrew.
Brilliant, that sounds great.
And I'll put myself on mute until the questions come in. Okay?
Yeah, lovely stuff. Well, thank you for the introduction, Ben. It's a pleasure to see you again. Appreciate the visit back, must have been a couple of months ago now. Time flies this time of year, as I'm sure as students you know yourselves, as you prepare for the winter break and exams, etc., coming up in the new year. So, as Ben mentioned, my name's Andrew. Here is the regional manager based in Dubai, with responsibility throughout the Middle East and North Africa, part of a wider team. The idea of today is to just give you the information, offer you the opportunity to ask as many questions as possible. I'm a big believer in the more questions, the better. And Ben will facilitate those through the Q&A chat. And we'll be able to just keep going. There's any questions that come out there, throw them out. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen now and issue the immortal words that seem to be happening since we're on Zoom is, can you see my screen there? Since life moved digital, is that all working, Ben?
Everything's good, Andrew. We can see everything.
Brilliant stuff. So let me begin. I see flip back. St. George's University School of Medicine. We've been a university since 1976, initially set in Grenada in the West Indies, which you've just seen flicking on and on there a couple of times due to my mouse having a bit of character. As you can see, it's an incredible setting out in our True Blue campus. And everything you see there with an orange roof is part of our campus. And we are a specialist medical university. So that means everything you do within the university setting is focused on medicine. We offer an MD program and the veterinary MD as well. This picture actually doesn't do it fully justice. I was there in May myself, and it is stunning. There's even a little bit missing just on the left-hand side of your screen there, where we have what are known as our wet labs, which are labs where you have cadavers, you do dissections, and really get that practical element of the program. And I'll give you a quick sort of cursor tour here. So you can possibly see this building sort of tucked away. This is one of our recently revitalized facilities, and each floor within that building is in fact a hospital ward. Now the wards are populated by, I'll probably get told off this, but I call them robot dummies, and I know it's not the right term. However, these are dummies that respond to your stimulus. you're gonna talk to them, treat them, they talk back. They have pain, they talk to you, they breathe, they blink. Slightly strange for me as someone who's not a doctor and hasn't had that experience, but the students love them. There's so many of those in there that 1,000 students a week can go and work on them. Here on the right-hand side, we have the accommodation, which we'll talk to a little more later. And all the other buildings you see are lecture halls, learning spaces. As I say, you will be immersed in medicine and your time here. And yes, you can see from the view, it's not a bad place to sort of be able to, once you've studied hard throughout the day, to have that time just to breathe, relax, and clear your mind a little bit. Now, I'm not sure how good everyone's eyesight is or how big their screens are, but just here, this is actually the runway for the airport in Grenada. I mentioned this is one of the key things with Grenada. There are no requirements for student visas. So you get a visa on arrival and you go forth for your study from there. But we can talk about visas. I know the team, certainly at Medical Door, we have a huge amount of experience in the UK visa, and that's support that they'll be able to give you as well. Now, we've been hugely successful. As mentioned, we've been operating since 1976, which means we've now graduated over 19,000 successful physicians. When you think about that in terms of the number of people that once you're an applicant with us, even before you even enroll, you have access to that network. These are people who can help support you, talk to you, help shape your journey as you go forward into practice. And as you think about specialities, all these things are going to be coming up possibly now. Therefore, in the future, you've got all these people you can go and speak with. We are, in fact, now the largest source of physicians in the whole of the US workforce. So we have currently operated in the USA, 12,553 doctors. Okay. One thing we're going to go to, we love to brag about being number one, is also our residency match rate. Everyone here, I hope, is clear on what we mean by residency. But if not, we can address that. We can talk to it as we go through. We also place students into the UK as well. So we are quite unique in our proposition in that you have the option to be qualified in the US or the UK. So those of you may be 50-50 about where you might want to be. Brilliant. And that options, and we'll talk about that in much more detail as I go forward. As I said, we're going to always brag about being number one. Okay. So those residencies, that's from the last 12 years combined. So this is a history of success. Okay. We have placed recently, I think like last year was 990 new doctors, new residents as well into the US. So that is consistent. Now, how do we do that? Again, I'll talk to that a little bit as we go along. It's through our hospital networks. It's through the support that you will get with us as an institution. Nobody makes the journey through medicine on their own. And we particularly aspire to give you the highest level of support that we possibly can. Look at that. I mean, those of you looking to go directly into work, 90% residency match rate. So at the time of graduation, depending on your pathway, you'll either go into the residencies in the US or into the foundation years in the UK. So you have both those options, and depending upon which medical license assessment you take prior to that step, you can go into either. But this is huge, and this is the key thing. We want to make sure that your journey throughout your medical education, then into your career, is always moving forward. There's no drop off. There's no points where you maybe have to take a year, 2 years. We want to ensure that you're going forward. Look, I'm getting older. I know the world certainly needs more doctors. I am one of them. Currently, there's actually a shortage of 4 million doctors in the world. 4 million is a phenomenal number when you think about it. And I'm someone who loves a number, so you may get this as I go forward as well. Of those practicing, a third of those doctors are over 55. So as you're thinking about your medical education, now depending upon the curriculum that you've taken, that length of education with us will be different. But in 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to be that person. And where are those guys, that other third of the workforce, going to be? Probably retired, right? So have a think about this. This is a real career, and that's one of the main things. Now, I mentioned support. Our Office of Career Guidance and Student Support are vital in your journey. So throughout your study, you will be given a personal tutor and a personal career guidance counselor as well. So I'll ask a question. I don't know if anyone's able to answer time. Does anyone know what they might want to do for residency yet or specialise in? It's always a bit of a leading question. Yes, people on the chat had some ideas?
Andrew, we've got the chat disabled at the moment, so no
Oh,
one...
sorry, on the question and answer section, sorry.
Yeah, if anyone's got any ideas of what they want to specialise in already, if they've thought about that, then just pop it into the Q&A, because obviously we can discuss some of the specialities that SGU offers as well. So just go ahead and pop that in and we'll come to those as we go.
Absolutely. And it's always fascinating to hear. One thing to learn about you guys as well, as you know, we're talking just about us as an institution. Now, one of the interesting things, lots of people change their speciality throughout their study. So whilst you're going through your study, you're finding that thing that you love, finding the thing that really, you know, you may go in thinking, great, I want to be a surgeon. This is it. This is the dream for me. Maybe specialize in cardiovascular, look at maybe neurology. That's a huge subject. But then you start going through and it's like, oh, anesthesiology is fascinating. It's part of the surgical team. It's part of the thing that I also wanted to do, but I really love this field. It could be pediatrics. It could be OBGYN. And as if you pivot and you change, we will do that also. So your career and guidance counsellor is there to help support you into residency. Within the program as well, and we'll talk about it in a little while, that in the last 2 years of the study, you go into clinical rotations. These guys here will also help you find your rotations. So there's a huge amount to do during the study, but again, that support element will come through as well. One of the second prongs about how we're able to get you into residency. We have a huge hospital network. Currently it's 75 hospitals, so that's in the US and the UK. You can see sort of the states at the bottom there. In California, Florida, Illinois, New York, New Jersey. Anywhere in the States, chances are you'll be able to find a residency with us. In the UK, predominantly in the south, east and southwest, so that's sort of London, Suffolk way as well. But now, as we grow into the UK, we're getting more and more partners. So we're now in the West Midlands, crossing to East Anglia, and also down into the Avon near Bristol and places like that. I don't know, but everyone's sort of British geography once it steps away from London's like, but a little bit of a spread there for you as well. So as I mentioned, those guys in the career guidance council, let's say New York, that's the dream. That's where you want to be. You say to them, I want to do my residencies in New York. Perfect. They would find with my hospital partners where to place you. So during that year before, where there's a few things that are going to happen, such as your medical license exam, some really big steps before you go into residency, into rotations and then residency. We're there to help you that. So there's even an app. There's an app where if you suddenly want to, you're partway through your rotation and the thing you really want to specialize comes up in, boom, you can apply to that as you go as well. So they're not always set in stone. Predominantly in that first year, we'll try and place you in a hospital that can cover your 7 core rotations. So that one, you know, you've gone to maybe a new city, a new place, you can settle, get into routines. Then in that final year, you specialize. Now, I mentioned medical license exams. We have the option. So predominantly, as I mentioned, our students will go to the US. So after the second year of the MD, you'll take your US medical license exam, step 1. Our pass rate first time is 97%. This is a significant exam. Okay, this is every result is published online. So every hospital that you might look to go to in the US knows that you've passed or failed. It is now a pass-fail test. I don't know what research you've all done coming up to this point, that it used to be a numerical score. Now it's pass-fail. So one of the things that's also going to become important, which I shall talk about once we go through into more detail of the program, is the letters of recommendation that you get throughout your rotations. Okay, but we'll talk about that a bit again in a more. I always seem to be sort of talking about what's coming next rather than what's there. After you graduate, so after you finish your MD, that's the point you'll take your step 2. Okay. Now, if anyone's scared of exams, step 1 is a 12-hour exam. Step 2 is a 24-hour exam. These are big exams. So every step that you take up to those points, particularly up to step 1, every test you take with us, every piece of work will have the same format as the USMLE. So you're prepared. Then the point you get into that exam, You're ready, you've done all your preparation, you're as prepared as you're ever going to be to step into that exam. Hence why we've got such great pass rates. And the same with the step 2. So you had your 2 years of clinical rotations, you're stepping into step 2, you've got all that additional knowledge and support that you've got during your rotations. Off you go, and then you're ready to go into residency. And also, if you do want to pivot and look at the UK, after the 3rd year of the MD, you can take your UK MLA. It's formerly known as the PLAB, but it's the UK Medical License Assessment, recently changed. So you have the option to do that as well. Now the program. It looks like a very long program, but please bear in mind, at each point you have individual entry criteria, okay? So it's not a case that everybody starts at year 1, does a 7-year program, and then goes through. So if we were to say, let's look at international qualifications, high school qualifications, so the IB, CBSE, or board exams, and A-levels, you will enter here. So you will take a 5-year MD program. If you've taken the American high school curriculum, SAVIS, and curriculums such as this, you'll be looking at the 6-year. Other curriculums, Thanawea, and local curriculums, you're looking at the 7-year program. Okay, so that's the first thing to consider. So depending where you are, and if anyone wants to ask any specific questions about grades and things, we'll address those as we go through the chat. But one of the things that you'll find across all entry points, biology and chemistry. These are your building blocks for medicine, okay? Not just us, every institution will ask for biology and chemistry. If I'm going to go for A-levels, because I can probably tell I'm British, so it's always the easy one for me to address. So if you're looking at 3 A-levels, you'll need biology, chemistry, maths, physics, psychology, or a 3rd subject, or a science-related subject. The grade requirements that we have for that are 3 Bs. Okay, sounds crazy low, doesn't it, for medicine? However, we do not limit our places. Okay, we don't have the point that you'll be competing against classmates, against friends for your place. At the point of application that you apply is only your application. We are in the advantage of being a specialist school. You know, the last, now I've been here in Dubai for, nearly 3 years. We've actually recruited over 130 students coming directly into the MD program, okay? So do think that that's one of the great advantages. You're always gonna have a chance, and we look to keep the door open. One of the other things we'll look for are English language assessments, IELTS, TOEFL, or Pearson. IELTS, the score we require is 7.0 in each skill area. However, often writing in IELTS, everybody gets a bit of a drop. If that's the case, again, door's not closed. We will look to put in what we call our MAC or our EMP, which are additional English support to you to help get you through to that next stage. Again, our main ethos is that we want you to succeed. That's the main thing. And we'll do that in lots of incredible ways. In fact, it's one I really like to show off about. So I mentioned that we've got all these students graduating, 900 to 1,000 odd students per year. So that means if you look on campus, we're going to have a heck of a lot of students, right? So how many students do you think we would have in each of our classrooms? I'm going to let you think about this because I know we're sort of on this sort of semi-live thing. Normally you'd think, oh gosh, what, you've got 1,000 students, let's say, per year. So it's going to be 100 per class. You know, lots of people staring down these massive lecture hall theatres, one cadaver, something like that. No. With us, our classes our size are 8 people per class. So think about how you fit into that. You're then broken up into 2 groups of 4. So you've got that access. You've got that point where you've got a conversation with the professor. All our professors are MD and MBBS qualified with experience. So at the very beginning, I spoke about specialities and that network of our graduates. You've also got that in your teaching staff. There's always somebody you can go and talk to about your speciality. We also encourage peer-to-peer learning. So let's say you're here and something's just not working. Sometimes in lectures, something's just not quite twigging. You've got a student, somebody who from the year ahead, who's done it, who you can then talk to and go, help me out. Just to help me get through, mate. And there's sometimes that changing conversation can really support how you think it and how you see it. Boom, got it, off we go, onwards to more success. Break down a bit more of the MD program. So you see here, you've got the basic principles of medicine. These 2 years are your first taught years. Now here, as I mentioned, where you take your US MLE step 1, you'll also get a taste your first degree with us. So with the correct GPA, you'll get your Bachelor of Medical Science from our UK partner at Northumbria University before you go into those clinical rotations that I said about. Now, these clinical rotations, the first year, your core clerkships. So there's 7 core clerkships. I shall try and remember that. Truthfully, I often forget, but I know it's surgery, family medicine, emergency medicine, OBGYN, anesthesiology, and there's other 2 that I forget, and my apologies. It's, as Ben mentioned, it's a bit later for me here today. But this year, you can specialize. So we spoke a bit about that decision-making process into your speciality. Let's say you're part thinking surgery, you're part thinking, we'll go back to anesthesiology. We will give you more rotations of what you want to specialize in that last year. So the point that you're coming into your residency or foundation year, you're ready. And you know exactly what you want to do. You're forging forward into your career. Now let's talk a bit about the flags here. It looks a bit like the United Nations to some people. So these are where you can study, okay? So you have the choice between the Grenada. So let's say this year it's only in Grenada. Then you have Grenada in the UK, Grenada UK in India, Grenada in the UK. Everyone comes to Grenada at this point. As mentioned, this way take your US MLE. Also, it's a 12-month academic year. So everything is geared up to make sure you pass that exam. However, lots of people who start in the UK, I've had it the last couple of years, they'll sort of phone me. It's like, what's going on? It's like, why didn't you send me to Grenada first? It's like, this place is amazing. It's stunning, got all these great things there. So that is something that is actually to really look forward to. Then again, here in your rotations, you have the choice of the US or the UK. You could do 1 year in each if you so chose as well. Okay, so there is the option to get that experience across all these different medical systems. So you could graduate with experience in Grenada medical health, UK medical health, and US medical health. Not many people are able to say they've got that sort of experience. In the summer months in between as well, we do summer projects, a bit like Doctors Without Borders. So we have projects in Thailand, Kenya, Czech Republic, India, and many other countries around the world where you can go with our team, deliver medicine in those countries. It really is, again, a phenomenal sort of global experience. If we can get more global doctors, the better. Currently we have, I think, 58 different countries in the world. We have graduates practicing medicine. So huge number of options there. For those who've got a bit of what's known as the wanderlust. So yeah, this is just a bit of a geography.
Right, sir. Come in there. I think there's a couple of questions. I think after that, which I think it's a good time to address them. Yeah. Obviously, we'll deal with Shayna's query about dermatology a little bit later on. I think perhaps near the end. But Lovin asked about GCSE results. Obviously, we're looking at 3 A levels or a full IB profile or a full CBSE profile for admission to year 5. Or the 5-year MD or the even 6-year MD, depending on subject. But what about GCSE results? I just want to answer Lovin's question. Are GCSE results considered when a student is applying, if they're applying, say, with IB, A levels, or one of the other curriculums?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we ironically, we actually do that. Pretty much GCSE would come into here. But I would always suggest go through the system, get your A levels. The main thing we look for is trajectory. Some people maybe have a blip year, but the idea is that you're progressing. So, let's say maybe you've got a BC profile in GCSE, then a B profile in AS levels, and you've got your B profile from A levels. Great. Because that's the main thing. You're going in the right direction. They won't be a limiting factor as long as you're showing you're getting towards that entry criteria.
Yeah. Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, basically, I think from what I understand, I think Logan's probably taking A levels, but you don't have to answer that, Logan. It's not a problem. It's just that if someone has a qualification, international qualification that's equivalent to GCSE, I'm thinking some of the West African certificates here, or the Middle Eastern qualification you've mentioned, they are looking at the 7-year pathway. So if they do have the option of going to do A levels, it's always a fantastic foundation to have, or an equivalent subject like IB. And with that in mention, I think we'll go straight on to Hamza's question about IB students. Now, because we work with a lot of IB students. Now, very few IB students, as you'll be aware, Andrew, can take 3 full sciences at the higher level. Some can if they have a school that can accommodate that, but most don't. So if you can talk a little bit more about the specific requirements for IB students in terms of access, say the 5-year MD, and then the 6-year MD for those who perhaps don't quite hit that grade, that'll really clear Hamza's question up, as well as anyone watching this recording afterwards.
Absolutely. So as mentioned, biology and chemistry. So for IB, they'd be our requirements at a higher level. And standard level maths or standard level physics, etc. Same thing, or psychology, if it's offered, depending upon your school, would also be accepted. The overall score requirements that we look for are 32 overall in the IB. And high levels, we're looking at 4 for biology and chem. But yeah, again, you're not going to be penalised because school curriculums are school curriculums. So when you apply, we will look at your profile and establish where that probably sits. Ben, you mentioned there, so let's say maybe they get 30 or drop slightly below. We just look at going maybe the year ahead. If it's a bigger gap and there's something maybe we need to do to give you further support, we'll examine that. Maybe you're looking at the 7-year program, just maybe build that knowledge and that style of learning as well. So style of learning in higher education is different from high school. And sometimes people, they'll actually thrive in higher education, whereas they found high school a bit more tough. So again, we will look at options. We'll look at how we consider, we're certainly, as I say, we're not a closed door institution.
Right. Someone anonymous has asked about maths GCSE. Does the university have a requirement for numeracy at like GCSE level?
At GCSE, no. I mean, as mentioned, physics, maths, something that shows numeracy further on. Yeah, yep. that would be an indication. But as I say, if the students have done really well in their biology and chemistry, but maybe slightly drop off, say like, standard level IB, or they still need their 3Bs at A level. We would consider that. But one thing as well is maybe, I don't know if there's many CBSE students on the call, but thinking about maths, that some CBSE students, they're not able to take maths throughout their curriculum. We will give them a summer program as part of the process. It's a program we run ourselves just to bridge that gap. So upon successful completion of that program, they then will be able to enter into the 5-year program.
Wonderful. Lovin, just to go, I know Lovin's just commented again because his network glitched, he just said, but Lovin, what we were saying basically is if you're a GCSE candidate, there's no specific requirements for GCSE if you're taking A levels or an other level 3 qualification. That's what the university is going to focus on. For those students who are just at a GCSE level qualification, which many high school systems around the world stop at before they enter higher ed, then you are looking at a 7-year pathway. But if you're progressing to A level, there's going to be no specific requirements at GCSE. So I hope that deals with your particular question. There are some other questions, Serena and Mirab, which we'll come on to those questions. I think as we go through the next stage of the presentation, aspects of it will be relevant there. But Serena, we'll deal with your particular question because it's a little bit longer and more complex towards the latter part of the presentation and at the Q&A section at the end, because I want Andrew to kind of move on to the next stage. So stay online, those questions will be answered.
Plus, I love a long and complex question. It's one of my favorite things. Wonderful. So I should go there. We've only got a few more slides to go, guys. So we'll get to the Q&A part fairly soon. I just think, it's always great to get those questions out there. As I mentioned, just a slight bit of geography so you can see where our campus are. I see Grenada down here in the Southern Caribbean. One of the great advantages of that is that it's actually below the hurricane belt. I know sometimes people worry about the weather. It's not such a problem in Grenada. And as mentioned, in the UK, we're in Newcastle, Northumbria University. In India, we partner with Rama High School in Bangalore. Just a little bit to sort of show off our facilities. So this is our Grenada campus. Facilities I'm talking about, such as the accommodation, they're replicated in the UK as well. So we have specific dorms for our medical students in the UK. You have your own room, shared areas such as kitchen, living space, etc. Ensuite rooms. And in Grenada, there's the variations. There's private rooms, as well as some dormitory rooms. But you can also request male only, female only rooms. So those sort of side things are also considered. We have a bus service on campus. So the photo you saw at the beginning doesn't quite indicate that it really is quite hilly. I think the back of the bus there maybe gives you a clue that it is actually more strenuous on the legs than it shows. But that service also goes around the island. So it is a free service to all our students. Only if you take accommodation outside of the campus on your second year. Because first year on any of our campus, the requirement, unless there's a special reason, we will expect you to be living on site in our accommodation. It really helps with that transition. So yeah, there'll be a local bus and you can pick that up around the island. We have in both campuses 24-hour security. There's even there's a thing they call the crisis center in Grenada. It sounds very grand. However, they've had maybe 7 events in a year. Grenada is incredibly safe. It is one of those places where, similar to here in Dubai, I don't know who's here, you know, you can leave phones and things and you'll come back to them. Now, in the UK, same thing. UK, again, probably, you know, it's slightly different, bigger population. But there's food on campus. There's all diets are considered and catered for. There are also local shops where you get halal food, you can get vegetarian food from all around the world, like so many places. This gentleman here has actually been at SU now for I think over 20 years serving food. So he's on one of the huts down by the beach. And I haven't had his food. I'd recommend him as a bit of a visit. He's a lovely human being as well. Now, we'll also going to give you the opportunity to not just be studying. I think everyone thinks you have to study every minute of every day when you're doing medicine. We want you to enjoy your experience as well. There's downtime deliberately put into the syllabus so that you can rest, recuperate, be sure that you're ready for the next step, you know, and do the things you love and maybe experience something you haven't, because, you know, there's lots of organizations, there's teams, there's so many different cultures that you're going to experience. I think we have students from over 98 different countries around the world. You know, so our international society is great. There's so many things. You know, learn the local Grenadian culture. There's so many fascinating things out there. We want you to enjoy those as well. We also want to make sure that you're fit, healthy, well. Mindfulness is something we speak about. I mentioned before, I do like a random number. In that year in Grenada, 90% of our students get their PADI diving license. Grenada is in a tremendous place for diving. It's top 10 in the world. Now, those of you maybe have been to the UK, diving in the UK, particularly in Newcastle, might be a bit of a stretch. You think probably have to have a bit more training to be able to do that. But again, the facilities are similar. There's a gym on campus, on both campuses. You know, things like yoga, etc., and art, all these things that help, you know, free your mind away from just your studies as well. We also offer scholarships. Now, we've not one thing we'll do at the point that you apply, have your interview, and are successful with your interview, we will look to do an assessment on your scholarship requirements. This is predominantly a financial need assessment. And this is all done prior to any point that you pay deposits, secure your place, etc. So you're very clear about what the financial responsibility is as well. Process-wise, so this is where the team at Medical Doorway will support you all the way through. They will help you with your application through the services that they offer, including that documents that bring in personal statement support, etc. I know the guys here, you've been doing it for a very long time now, so a huge amount of experience. They'll help you prepare for the interview. Now, the interview that we deliver is not an MMI interview. It is a one-on-one interview and based predominantly around your personal statement. Once we have that, there's a decision. And as I mentioned, that's where we'll do your scholarship, etc. Now, we can do this relatively quickly. You don't have to wait for months for an answer from us. And yeah, that's pretty much all the information for now. So does anybody think just I can refer back to the slides before we go back?
Andrew, I'll show everyone how we do the application once we've done the questions, because I've already got that ready to go.
Brilliant.
So we will go through some of the questions now. Someone did ask us a very specific question, which I've answered directly by typing the answer in. So hopefully you've got that answer there when I did that one. That was to Shana as well. Okay, so Serena's asked, and this is where we haven't talked about the tuition fees yet, because as you'll learn when you go through this, setting the tuition fees is not exactly standard because there are so many factors to bear in mind. But someone's asked, they're looking at the graduate entry program, so the 4-year MD pathway. They're UK based. So basically they've asked about the campus in the UK. Now I've had the opportunity to visit the campus in the UK. That's at Northumbria University in Newcastle. It's right in the city centre. It's a dedicated building that SGU operates, and they also have access to the other university buildings around the city as well, which I didn't get the chance to visit. So you'll be doing that first year of the 4-year programme in Northumbria at Northumbria University in the city centre of Newcastle. And visiting there, it was actually my first time visiting Newcastle. Has to be one of the friendliest cities to actually visit in the UK, actually. It was remarkably friendly, so definitely it's a positive experience. The tuition fees, Serena, they vary depending on a number of factors. We have a list of the tuition fees and we'll go through them with you. But one thing that SGU does offer is very generous, what they call bursary options, which can reduce the fees. Now, my understanding, Andrew, is SGU pops that bursary towards the clinical parts of the program, which tends to be the more expensive part of the course. The one thing you're not going to get, however, from the UK is a student loan. Some of our students who do apply to SGU do get loans from their home governments, but for private funders like those from the UK, you would have to rely on some of the bursaries to bring the fees down. So Andrew, I think if you want to just talk to Serena, but then more generally to those people listening online about the bursaries offered by SGU, because they are some of the most generous we've come across.
Yes, certainly. I mean, they are very much personal amounts. So as I mentioned a couple before, that we will do a financial need assessment. So the point that students have been accepted, we will then talk normally on a wider scale, depending on how they plan on funding the program, often with parents and family, etc., to just work out income, outgoings, savings, how the funding for the program will be organized. And from that, we'll make an assessment. Then once we've made that assessment, you'll be given a letter to indicate what you've been awarded and how that breaks down against the MD, so the last 4 years of the program. It's paid by term. So if we did a term breakdown, year 1 is 2 terms, year 2 and year 3 are 3 terms, and year 4 is 2 terms. So therefore you get a higher amount of what's seen as the higher cost parts of the program. So yes, I mean, in regards to student loan, unfortunately that's not available. Some students also, as Ben mentioned, do get local funding, international students, and some students do take out graduate loans to support their study as well. So it is very much a personal part of the process, and we'll spend the time to do that and try and give you the best possible scholarship for you.
Yeah. As I said, all of our applicants fill in the confidential declaration. To give you an idea, in previous years, we've had between $50,000 to $90,000 bursaries awarded to our applicants. Someone's asked, do you guys offer dentistry? That's not something we've actually been discussing, Andrew.
No, it's not something we do either, because it's a separate program. Most places that do dentistry, it's a completely different pathway. The closest thing you're probably going to get is maxillofacial surgery, maybe ENT, something like that. But no, unfortunately, no, we don't offer dentistry.
Okay. Someone said their son's going to graduate with the IB in 2023. So next year in July, early July, they'll get the results. But there are going to be 17 in February. So there'll be 17 on enrollment. Now, for British medical schools, there is a requirement to be 18 years of age on enrollment, linked to the way that our curriculums are organised in the UK. What's SGU's policy on that one, Andrew?
We can take students that are below the age of 18. Policy is more around safeguarding. So the point the students are ready to enroll, even prior to that, we will put together just a plan to ensure that they're safe, looked after, they have points of contact. But we have had students enter the program at 16 or 17 years of age. So it's slightly different. I say we don't have that stipulation as an international medical school.
Perfect. Yeah, because in the UK, you see, Mohammed, the question, I know what question relates to, in the UK, many of our medical students do some clinical experience within the first three months of the program, or healthcare general experience for their professional development. That's not something which, if you looked at the curriculum at SGU, students will do at that stage of the program. So yes, and a 17-year-old can enroll. Obviously in the UK, and I imagine in Grenada as well, you're classified as a child until you turn 18. So the university has a duty of care, and that's regarding safeguarding, etc., which Andrew alluded to there. So yes, can definitely apply. Will be treated like any other applicant, and if they're admitted, those safeguarding policies and procedures will be implemented. Logan, the application.
Once they turn 18, as well as you mentioned, they'll be classed as an adult, and therefore. Yes. They will be put to one side as well. Sorry, next question.
Logan, I'm going to do a screen share for everyone shortly, so I'll just deal with some of the other questions, okay? And Serena, I'll give you the email address at the end anyway. Someone said, Shane has asked, do they benefit as a Grenadan? Well, we've never had a Grenadan apply to Grenada. Now, this will be a new one for me. So, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, as a Grenadan, as you can imagine, as we're deeply embedded into the island. There are specific funding support you can get as a Grenadan, and also you can get access into the local hospitals as well. So when you do your rotations, you can also go do your rotations in Grenada. And again, when you're considering your journey about where you want to practice, that comes into play. So yes, there are some benefits. I'm happy to talk about more about those in more detail. And it's always lovely to speak to someone from Grenada. Having spent some time there, love that place.
Someone anonymous has asked, how many years does the scholarship apply for?
It's those 4 years, yeah.
Literally at those 4 years. And again, if it is a $90,000 scholarship, it can be geared more towards the final year. So skewed towards to kind of bring the cost more level across the 4 years of that particular program. Right, so someone's asked about how to do the application and also our email, so I can deal with those two at the same time. Brilliant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we've got an extremely quick and efficient system for this, okay? So everyone, if you see the Medical Doorway website, there's two ways to get to the St. George's application form. The first thing is you can check universities, and you'll find St. George's University there under Grenada. And all the information about the university is there. And for the person asking the best way of getting in contact with us, you'll see our email address for the office, hello@Medical Doorway, is on every single page that you will go to. It's at the top of the page, it's on this page, it's literally on everywhere. And even then, you can just fill an informal inquiry form in here. If you don't want to make an application, but want more information, just fill the course, this form in here. It comes through to our team. Myself or one of the team will actually get back to you. We've got videos, etc. If you're ready to apply, you can see SGU application form, blue button there. You'll also see a little link here. Alternatively, apply now on the left-hand side will take you to a holding page for all of our application forms. But if you click on SGU application form, it will open up an application form that we've created. It goes straight into our system. This is to catch the data which we need for the application. What we don't want on this is all the attachments, because we're going to first assess your application. The one thing I would say is applying with Medical Doorway does mean you're exempt from the usual university application fee. So it's a financial benefit there to apply with Medical Doorway. Fill in the form and then upload a copy of your passport. You don't have to. If you've got it, do upload it there. Once that's been done, we've assessed the application. We'll come back to you with some questions to ensure that this program is the right fit for you. Some of those will be about your qualifications, some will be about affordability, etc. And once we're certain that is the right program for you, we will then request the different kind of pieces of paperwork that we need. We will need a copy of your passport. We will need a copy of your whole academic transcripts, whether that's GCSEs, A-levels, English language certificate if you need it, university transcripts if you've been. We'll also need a personal statement from you, which we do need to put into the application itself. That is limited to 500 words. So please do work on cutting down a lot of that waffle and getting to the point. Universities like SGU and a lot of the American universities, they do like short and sharp, to the point motivation statements. The only other thing we'll need then are some reference letters. We'll need 2 separate letters of recommendation, and that can sometimes be the thing that takes a little bit longer to get. They'll need to be on headed paper if they come from your school and signed. But once we have those documents, we'll send them to our colleagues in the different offices that we deal with, whether it's Andrew's office in the Emirates or the UK office here or out in Hong Kong or directly in New York. And then we'll be able then to get you ready for interview. Your application will then go to a committee who will decide if you're shortlisted for interview, and then you'll get an email. And rather than giving you a date, they'll give you an opportunity to determine if the date is relevant or not. And then you negotiate a date with your examiner, have an online interview. And then usually we hear back after maximum 2 weeks from SGU if you've received an offer or not. And then they'll tell you about deposit payments, those kinds of things. And if you've got any questions, you can come straight back to us. But SGU has an entirely, fantastic team that will help you negotiate through the application procedure and acceptance. So I've dealt with how to do the application. The initial application takes no longer than 10 minutes. So it's a very quick thing to do. As I said, best thing is hello@medicaldoorway.com, or fill in the inquiry form or even the application form on our website, and we can take it from there. Okay, someone's asked about graduate entry requirements for the 4-year MD. Now, It can vary a little bit depending on your nationality as well. But Andrew, if you want to someone's asked about biomedical science specifically. So if you want to kind of give an idea about what the university would usually look for in a biomed graduate.
Absolutely. So depending where you've got your biomed from, classification is higher second class honours degree if it's from the UK. So if you look at, say, if it's from the US, that's about 70% above GPA of, that's, try and do some head maths, but that's the sort of level of standing that we're looking for. It would be direct entry into the 4-year MD program. We have start points that are slightly different from our traditional programs. So we have a January, April, and August and September start for those programs. And yeah, we just look at that. We do the transcripts from your degree. We obviously need to see that you've done well in bio and chem, similar to the preclinical programs as well. But yeah, that's what we'd look for.
If you have taken a GAMSAT or an MCAT, or someone's asked about BMAT or UCAT here, we will submit those documents anyway. We don't work with American students for SGU, but Americans, if they're only on, are required to take the MCAT. If you're a Canadian, you're not required to take it, but if you have taken it, we will disclose it. But again, it's a question of building up the whole academic profile. So we will demonstrate or show all of your different aptitude tests when we do the application. The more documents the decision makers have, the better. For example, you could be a candidate who's perhaps not done particularly well in one academic subject, or not as well as you would have wanted to, but you may present with a very high BMAT or UCAT or GAMSAT. And the committee will consider the whole academic profile of an individual, rather than boxing you into a set rubric of entry requirements, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to build on that, though, I think it is something, as you say, it's great as part of the profile. For most of our international students, it's not a requirement. So if you're coming particularly through the high school pathways into the preclinicals, most people, you're going to be applying for several universities. You've done it, it's there, it shows your aptitude. Great, but it isn't necessarily a direct requirement for us. It is your high school and that English language assessment, as we mentioned as well.
Yeah, definitely. Someone's asked, can I apply before getting my results, or should I wait for the results first? No, apply as long as you're in your final year of high school or university education, depending on which pathway you're going down. Apply now. If you're perhaps 2 years away, then you can still express your interest, and the university will send you different amounts of information at different points. In fact, Andrew does a lot of work with schools in the Emirates with med societies and things as they go through their education to make sure they're ready for things like interviews. So again, apply as long as you're in your final year of high school or university education, but do get in touch if you're just interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just asked for the predicted grades. That'd be where that application would come in there from. And we'd be able to, we are able to interview on predicted grades.
Yeah, yeah. Now there's questions here about residency. I'll deal with the one at the bottom first. I think someone's getting a bit confused between clinical placements and residency. For the person, it's anonymous, so I haven't got a name, but there's a do you offer scholarships for residency? Well, residency, if you get it in the US, is a job. It's an employed position. So you're paid, you're a qualified doctor working in your residency. So you don't get a scholarship for that because it's a salaried job. However, as we mentioned before, the university do offer bursaries, scholarships, which bring the cost of the clinical placements down, which is where which are the more expensive parts of the program. Someone's asked, how many years is the cardiology and general surgery residency, and when is it done? Generally speaking, when you do enter residency, you're not specializing, exactly at that particular point. Okay. Usually your specializations, your very specific specializations comes later. Now, when we're trying to compare cardiology against general surgery, you're going to find some areas of medical practice are more competitive than the other. I can only speak from a UK perspective, but if you want to go into, say, cardiac surgery in the UK or orthopedics, you'll find that those specialities are more competitive to get into than something like general surgery. Yeah. So how long it takes to specialize really does depend on a number of factors. It can depend on the area you want to specialize in. It can also depend on your life as well. If you've got family life, etc., like that, things can take different periods of time. So it's really going to depend, and also depends on which part of the country or which country you're going to be in when you're starting to specialize as well, and what training opportunities are there. If obviously you're in the UK and you're in a city like Manchester, Birmingham, London, Liverpool, the big cities, there's going to be a lot more opportunities and a lot more very specific specializations there than are going to be in some more provincial cities, etc. And I imagine the same will probably apply to the US, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as you mentioned, I mean, there's life as well as everything else that is part and parcel of that journey. Some students do choose to not go directly into residency. They choose to take a break after rotations, but most go straight through. I'm quite interested in, so obviously, Shania is very interested in dermatology.
Dermatology, yeah.
It is the second most competitive speciality in the world. It is a very hard one to get into. It's neurology and then dermatology. One of the things that might help you with your decision is that, when it comes to neurology, we actually placed a third of the neurologists last year. So 60 of the 180 spots in the US were SGU. Dermatology is incredibly competitive. However, it's also an expanding field. It is something where, particularly given things like climate change, etc., it has very much come to the front and the fore of people's minds. So it's competitive, but it's all about working hard and utilizing, from our perspective, those rotations, that last year of rotations, to try and getting as much dermatological experience as you can.
Yeah, no, I know, and there's a lot of media around dermatology, both on on some of the kind of entertainment channels and things about people with dermatological conditions, because it is a big issue for many people, and it's very important specialization, really. Very profitable in the States, actually, if you're a clinician working in that area. Yeah,
I even saw one recently where there's discussions around actually having sunscreen on when you're watching television. Wow. Because of sort of the blue rays and things, and actually the size of TVs, etc. nowadays, that it is becoming something that radiant factor, it is worth considering for someone who has particularly sensitive skin.
There's two more questions, and I think at the end of the hour, so we'll probably, unless there's any more that get pop on. Someone did ask a question on YouTube about tuition fees, but I've dealt with that one directly. Someone said, are Africans eligible for scholarships? Everyone's eligible for a bursary or scholarship. I think there are different rules if you come with government sponsorship, though, Andrew. Yeah?
Yeah, so if you come with government sponsorship, that's a conversation between us, the institution, and your sponsor. Absolutely. Look, everyone is eligible for a scholarship, and we will always encourage, I say, it's part of our application process. Yeah. So please do apply. We want to support you as best we can.
Someone's asked, if they don't do chemistry at high school, what situation are we in there?
there's two different prongs to the way you can look at this. You could look at maybe, like I say, possibly that longer program, the 7-year program. We do have partner foundation providers. On our website, you can see a list of those that can possibly give you more specialist knowledge in a shorter amount of time. And a lot of them do individual sort of sessions where there's gaps. But yeah, we'd have to look quite. It depends what level you haven't done chemistry as well. That's the thing. If you've not maybe done, I'm supposed we go back to the UK. If you don't take chemistry GCSE, you can't take it AS, etc. Then it's a very different conversation. So we'd have to just take in those transcripts and do a real examination of that.
Man, 3 more questions that just flooded in. So all 4 now.
Just because you said it's closing. Yeah. It's the way it happened.
Someone's asked about the USMLE. For those who don't know, it stands for United States Medical Licensing Exam. They're the mandatory exams that you need to apply for residency matching in the US. Given the amount of time we have on this presentation, I don't think I want to discuss it in any great amount of depth. At this particular stage, it's not really the place for that. But effectively, it's the licensing exams that allow you to apply for residency jobs in the United States. Most countries have some form of licensing exam. Canada has the medical counselor qualifying licensing exam. We have PLAB in the UK, which will become the medical licensing assessment from the beginning of 2024. But just bear in mind, for most countries, they will have some form of licensing or licensing criteria. For example, Malaysia has a list of programs it qualify that are exempt from licensing exams, etc. And Hong Kong has just introduced one itself. For a UK citizen, can you do residency in the US? How is the visa managed? Well, the answer is yes, actually. You can do both your clinical placements as part of the program, and also you can apply as a non-US graduate and a non-US citizen for residency in the States. At the moment, you're pushing on open doors, I believe, Andrew, in that regard.
Yes, certainly. Very much so. We are finding there's huge shortages of doctors around the world, US particularly. With regards to the visa and that process, our Office of Career Guidance and Student Development will help you with your visa. So at the point, let's say if you're going to do your rotations those last 2 years in the US, you'll do a J1 visa application and you'll go through. Often as a UK citizen, it's a fairly easy process. Then once you graduate, you graduate and you go through a thing called the match in the US.
Yes.
That's where you're looking at residency. Once you're placed in the match, you'll apply for your visa. Again, you're applying for a visa as a doctor.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much a given. And then we also support with that process as well. So, we're not just going to sort of push you off at the deep end the moment you graduate. We will support you with that throughout the process as well.
And for those who want to think about a job in the UK, if they needed a UK visa, since we've left the European Union, actually non-Europeans are probably in a more advantageous position to get jobs in the UK now. And also we have the healthcare workers visa, which is a fast track visa, which can take about 3 weeks to be issued once you've applied for it. So there are pathways to, as a doctor, you'll find that you are pushing on open doors, both in terms of access to employment, and then once you've got employment, access to the country in which you're going to work in if you need a visa for that country. Adriana's asked if you don't take physics at high school, it's not a problem. Physics is not mandatory for the program. Say, for example, you had 3 A levels and one of them was not physics. It's not a problem, provided the other 3 would be considered science subjects, including biology and chemistry. And are scholarships available for the 7-year program? Yes, you can apply for a scholarship irrespective of the pathway which you are going through as well. So we are now at 3 p.m. in the UK. I think it's 7 p.m. with you in Dubai, isn't it, Andrew? And I want to say thank you to everyone who's logged in. I think and listened. We've had various people coming in and out. It's been a very well attended webinar, actually. We've had some fantastic questions. For those that want to watch this again, this recording is going to be available on YouTube. It will be available immediately following we closing this presentation. We will drop an email out to everyone, thanking everyone as well. And for those who perhaps couldn't make it, who did register, they'll have access to this video as well. I do want to say a huge thank you to Andrew for joining us for our last webinar of 2022, and the warm welcome that the warm welcome that he gave us and his team gave us to the office in the Emirates, Lovin. If you want the WhatsApp number, which you've got that on our website, there's a little app on the website to allow you to send us a WhatsApp if you want to. So just go to medicaldoorway.com and just click on the WhatsApp logo there, and that will enable you to WhatsApp us directly. So don't worry about that. You can contact us in so many different ways, which students invariably do all the time. But I want to say a huge thank you to Andrew and the team that I met in the Emirates for this presentation on their hospitality. Any other questions? hello@medical doorway, or do go to our website and fill in the inquiry form. And again, if you want to have a one-to-one, perhaps with the team in the Emirates or one of the other SGU teams, and you want to ask some questions specific to the team there, we can arrange that for you as well if it's something we can't specifically deal with. So thanks again to everyone who tuned in, and have a fantastic holiday period, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye now.